You're about to listen to a BBC podcast, and trust me, you'll get there in a moment. But if you're a comedy fan, I'd really like to tell you a bit about what we do. I'm Julia Mackenzie, and I commission comedy podcasts at the BBC. It's a bit of a dream job, really. Comedy is a fantastic, joyous thing to do because really you're making people laugh, making people's days a bit better, helping them process all manner of things. But, I also know that comedy is really subjective and everyone has different tastes. So we've got a huge range of comedy on offer, from satire to silly, shocking to soothing, profound to just general prattling about. So if you fancy a laugh, find your next comedy at BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast, your daily whistle-stop tour through all the latest news. It's Thursday, 30th of November, St Andrew's Day. I'm Alasdair Lamont, and coming up today...
Danilo inside the penalty, it looks up, goes for goal, slots it in!
Could there be more European glory for Rangers at Ibrox? We look ahead to the Aris Limassol game and hear from the Scot playing in Cyprus.
The top division, the Premiership, is very technical, and in general the level in Cyprus is very, very high.
Also dead rubber or dead important. We'll preview HJK Helsinki against Aberdeen. And
then it comes and into the back of the net. Danny Devine, the goal scorer for Cali Thistle.
As the weekend action looms into view, we'll hear the latest from the always entertaining Scottish Championship.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sport Scotland.
James has emailed in to scottishfootball@bbc.co.uk asking for more Championship chat. Well, your wish is our command, James, because we've got a man who knows that league inside out. Clyde and former Partick Thistle and Ayr United manager, among others, Ian McCall. How are you this fine morning, Ian?
Hi Al, yes I'm good, I'm well wrapped up. It's Baltic out there, so yeah, looking forward to it.
Good show, lots more to come from Ian. We'll also be hearing from Ali Reynolds, a Scottish player based in Cyprus, a little later on. But before that, let's quickly run through today's news. Rangers can clinch Europa League progression against Aris Limassol tonight at Ibrox, but they'll have to do it without a host of first-choice players. Leon Balogun, Connor Goldson, Ryan Jack and Nico Raskin among those unavailable. Barry Robson insists his team will be fully motivated and going all out for a win as they face HJK in Helsinki, even though neither can qualify in the Europa Conference League. Scotland star Scott McTominay's fine goal-scoring form continued as he bagged his first Champions League goal last night in Manchester United's 3-3 draw away at Galatasaray.
Wan-Bissaka's cross, McTominay slides in from close range. Clinical stuff from Manchester United.
More good news for the national team as Kieran Tierney returned to the Real Sociedad squad for their game against FC Salzburg. And Motherwell fans have shared what they believe to be the club's fine list. Among the offences that can supposedly land players in hot water are wearing flip-flops to meals and cringy social media posts. Fine lists, Ian, what a good place to start. Do you have one at Clyde already, and how strictly enforced are they?
They do a kind of a fine list at most clubs now that the players do themselves. Incidentally, I've never fined a player in my 24 years, not once. I tell you, I might have fined Owen Coyle, but then didn't actually take the money from him for being late for a game at Dunfermline for Falkirk when we had a really good team, and I didn't think it was going to affect the game, and we were 1-0 down after 17 seconds. So I'm not one to fine players, so that's just how I went about things.
Well, enough of that serious stuff. Rangers, currently second in Europa League Group C, play Aris Limassol at Ibrox. Looking for revenge, I guess, after the Cypriots beat them 2-1 in their previous meeting. Do you see Rangers being able to turn the tables and get that victory they require to go through, Ian?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the almost the breaking point. I know it wasn't the game that Michael was relieved of his duties, but I watched that game, and Aris Limassol, I thought were very, very poor. I think they've had decent results lately, but they were very, very poor. And you would expect, I would imagine, like everybody else, that with a win they go through at Ibrox, where I think the atmosphere compared to the Michael's last game, the Aberdeen game, is, I don't know if you covered that game. It's probably very, very different. I think they'll have too much. And I'm still fascinated, or not fascinated, but it's amazing how Yilmaz and Balogun, particularly Yilmaz, because left back's a very particular position. Not to be included in the European squad when I don't know what they spent on, 4 million, and he plays a very particular position. That's odd, but I do think they've got cover for Goldson and Balogun, and Davis and Suter and guys like that. So, listen, I would expect at Ibrox for it to be maybe not comfortable, but they should be. They should come out on top.
What is your assessment of the job that Philippe Clement has done so far? Is there anything you've noticed particularly that he has improved upon in his time in charge?
Well, I think one of the things is there's, you can't say every player was poor when they were on such a poor run. I just think it was football at any level there's an awful lot to do with it, about confidence. So I think he's imparted confidence. That comes with the manager, with positivity, but also with winning games of football. I've watched 2 or 3. I watched the Aberdeen game and I thought out with the first 15 minutes when they were 1-0, and to be honest, they could have been 2-0 down. A really good save from Butland. After that, it was all Rangers, and they were very unfortunate not to go and win that game. So I don't think he's really tinkered with the shape that much. I think they're a bit more direct, but I just think it's players being a little bit more confident, and hence you've got these results. I think the Aberdeen game was a little bit of a setback just due to Celtic dropping 2 points against Motherwell in the day before. But there's certainly confidence about the players just now, and I don't think he'll be blinded by that. I still think he'll know that he has to make some changes. January is a notoriously hard month to do that in, but there'll certainly be 2 or 3, I would imagine.
Well, if they beat Aris Limassol tonight, they're guaranteed to be in Europe beyond the new year. Aris, a bit of an unknown quantity, despite that meeting earlier in the season. Ali Reynolds, though, is a man who knows them better than most. He's a Scottish player who plies his trade in the Cypriot top flight. I caught up with him to find out more about Rangers' opposition, his unique career path and his international ambitions.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast.
So, Ali, you're based in Limassol, is that right? You currently with, is it Ayes? That's how you pronounce your current team?
Yes, I'm in Limassol at the minute. Ayes Zakaku. Yeah.
You played previously, I know, for both Apollon and AEL in the same city, so you'll know Aris well, no doubt. I was out at the previous game, but for the general public who haven't maybe seen all that much of them, what sort of team would you say they are?
They used to be known as a bit of a yo-yo club, so they used to be up and down sort of divisions. But they had a financial gain from an investor, so they've put a lot of money within the club. And last year they obviously won the championship. And again, now they're currently sitting top of the table. And also, I went to the game in Limassol against Rangers. I'm obviously a Rangers fan, so I went to watch the game and I was very surprised. Obviously, Rangers at the time, they weren't in a very good situation. But yeah, Aris, I think, surprised not only like in Cyprus, but I think the whole general football, how they played, and it was a shock, definitely.
We're probably guilty in Scotland, certainly, of assuming that Rangers or teams of that level should be able to go and beat Cypriot teams regardless of who they are. But I mean, maybe that's a little bit ignorant in terms of a lack of knowledge about the standard in Cyprus. How would you say they compare generally, the 2 top tiers?
The top division, the Premiership, is like very technical. It's obviously you would have saw the game against Aris. A lot of the boys are very good with the ball, speed, direct. And in general, the level in Cyprus is very, very high. A lot of foreign players come here. And yeah, like you said, I think everywhere around Europe and stuff, you kind of neglect, obviously, other countries. And you probably don't categorise them in the same level. But the champions are always going to have a very good team. So whenever Rangers come or whoever come, it's obviously going to be a very hard game. And I think, obviously, Rangers probably didn't expect the game to be as difficult as it ended up being.
Now, you hinted at it earlier on, and if Wikipedia is to be believed, you're actually named after Ali McCoist. So, I mean, I was going to say, have you got split loyalties, but it doesn't sound like you have. It sounds like you just want Rangers to win.
No, I'm a massive Rangers fan. So, yeah, Rangers through and through, I guess.
So you reckon that they will they'll go and get revenge? Because obviously a win takes Rangers through, it guarantees them at least second place and gives them a shot at being top of the group, depending on how other results go as well. So you reckon that's how it will materialise?
I think at Ibrox, I think Rangers, like obviously in the European run when they went to the final at Ibrox, they're dominant against most teams. To be honest, I think they'll take anyone at Ibrox. So I think Aris going there is going to be a very, very difficult task to get anything really from the game.
Just finally, to kind of finish up with on a personal note for you, interestingly, I suppose for other people who maybe don't know that much about you, you've played your full career out there, and I'm sure that's been hugely enjoyable. Would you have aspirations of going elsewhere or even coming to Scotland at some stage?
Obviously, the club I'm at now is a very healthy club. They promote a lot of the youth players and stuff like that, so it's like a very healthy club. A very good president, obviously coaching staff and stuff like that. So I'm very happy where I'm at the minute, but I've got a 1-year contract here. So obviously afterwards, I'm kind of open. Like obviously I did have aspirations to try come to Scotland and to try play there. But obviously at my age now, I'm 27. So kind of just going and seeing what sort of experiences come up, whether it be Asia or America, Australia. I'm kind of open just to kind of get that experience that I think a lot of players in the UK, that they're kind of happy, they're set to stay there, but I kind of want to obviously, as you said, I've been my whole career in Cyprus, so if I can get something else outside, then I'm definitely be open to.
So, I mean, obviously, your short-term goal, I guess, is to keep your team in the league. You're 11th at the moment, so things are going not too badly as a promoted side.
No, as you said, our budget was low this year, so I think a lot of people thought that we'd be one of the teams to go down, but as we're sitting at the minute, we're 4th from bottom, and I think we're doing really well. And obviously in Cyprus, there's a penalty if you don't put 2 homegrown players or Cypriot players within the starting 11. So because I've been in Cyprus for so long, I classify as one of the homegrown players from academy level. So with that being said, we're currently trying to make my passport from Cyprus so I could be eligible to play for the national team, which is also another very good thing for my career, my CV.
Yeah, absolutely. So you could be representing Cyprus. You'd probably get drawn against Scotland again quite soon. It always seems to come up. So that would be something. That would be a novelty.
Yeah, that would be unbelievable. Obviously playing at Hampden. It would be difficult for my family. I don't know who they'd be supporting, me or Scotland, but yeah, it would be very special.
Well, good luck to Ali. We'll maybe see him playing at Hampden for Cyprus one day. Aberdeen, though, are also in action tonight facing HJK Helsinki. 5:45 kick-off in the Finnish capital. They can't qualify. Ian, I just wonder, will there be frustration still on Barry Robson's part that they perhaps don't have the points to show for some kind of overall good performances in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, I think undoubtedly, I think I would temper that with, the load has appeared to be a little bit too much. Although I don't think you should ever be using that as an excuse. The Thursday, Sunday, because if you are successful, that's what's going to happen. But I think Barry will be more concerned with. It will be gutted that there's probably 3 games they could have got more points in, I think. Yeah. But I think he'll be gutted that he'll be happy that he'll be allowed to concentrate in the league, because they're in a reasonably precarious position now in the league, and they do need to get some points from their couple of games in hand, which would make it a little bit rosier, the picture for them. But they have got to be competing for that 3rd or 4th spot. I mean, I think with the expenditure at the club, and I think the squad is good enough. So I think maybe coming out of Europe, you'll never think this at the time, Al, but coming out of Europe might be a godsend to improve their league form with not such a big load.
You're listening to the Scottish Football Podcast.
Okay, let's turn our attention back to domestic matters with a focus on the Championship. Saturday's fixtures, just to run through them quickly: Ayr United against Arbroath, Dunfermline Queen's Park, Morton Dundee United, Inverness Caley Thistle, Raith Rovers and Partick Thistle against Airdrie. Ian, from that list of fixtures, what stands out for you most?
Well, I think it's a crucial game for Dundee United. They've had 2 poor results. I mean, the astonishing stat from their game against Queen of Throws, where they did 36 shots at goal, 18 in target, and went out in penalties. So, Morton need results. It's a notoriously hard, not so much this season, but it's usually a very hard place to go. The pitch is very tight. When they're playing well, Dougie Emery has them playing a certain way. It's a very physical challenge. That's not to say they don't. I'm not saying they don't play football. Of course they do, but it is a physical challenge. I think that's a really, really key game in Dundee United's season, because, if they lose at Morton, then all of a sudden the 2 cup ties added to the league turns into a sort of mini crisis. I think they started the league superbly well. Obviously, 33 goals in 13 games is pretty special. So that's a big, big game for both clubs at opposite end of the table, but particularly for Dundee United.
Are you surprised, though, to see Dougie Emery's Morton struggling this season after being so impressive last year?
I would fear for Arbroath. I think Morton might get beyond them, but they need to pick up really quickly.
Just as you mentioned, Arbroath, I mean, Dick Campbell and Arbroath have been associated for so long now. Did that come as a shock, their parting of the ways?
No, not really. I mean, I've got no inside info yet. I've got to phone. I've written down to phone Pink today, and then I'll drop Dick a text. I just think they made a rod for their own back. The season that they ran Kilmarnock close. I mean, they went with the same back four, which for me was the best back four in the league, with O'Brien and Little as centre backs. I don't think they were injured the whole season, the back four. And since then, expectation has risen. I do think that everybody's got to remember that if you look at Dick's body of work over 7 years, where he's taken them from, even to stay in the league for 5, whatever years it is, you look at the number of season tickets they sell now. If you're ever at Gayfield now, it's very, very different to when, with the COVID money, they got 500,000. Very different stadium to it was going back 15, 20 years. The pitch is now excellent. The facilities are excellent. He's really, really... I always think, as a manager, you look at the club when you arrived and when you left. Whether you left in your own terms or whether you were put out the door. If the club has improved, then you've done your job well. And I don't think anybody can say they didn't do a job there. The big question is whether Dick, at 70 years of age, is going to go and take another job. Who knows? It'll
be intriguing to see who takes over there as well. Another club that's had a recent change of manager, Inverness Cali Thistle, their game against Wraith Rovers is a kind of intriguing one as well. I mean, Duncan Ferguson certainly seems to have begun well. Ian Murray doing a terrific job keeping Wraith up along almost with Dundee United. So that'll be an interesting one.
Yeah. I mean, Ian Murray's got a really good idea of what it is to be a football manager. I mean, he's not been doing it that long, 4, 5, 6 years maybe, but they do play a certain style and it's very identifiable. I think they've got a lot of good players, a lot of creative players. Duncan's done obviously terrifically well. They're the one team that I would say, I think the top 3 are nailed on to finish in the playoff positions. Whoever wins it, I don't know. Inverness are the club that could come with a bit of a... I mean, it's a bit weird to say a late rattle just now with only about a third of the season going, but the only thing I would say is that he needs to maybe turn the draws into wins, because draws in the Championship or any league don't cut it really. But he's done really, really well. But they've got a good squad of players, and the signing of David Witherspoon obviously has been a bit of a catalyst. He's got a couple of assists and a few goals, so they would be the dark horses for me. Finally, this week on the Championship, what do you make of the departure of Queen's Park's Director of Football, Marijn Bouwker, away to Ajax for a similar role over there? Well, I mean, it's been talked about for a number of weeks now. It looked as if it was only a matter of time. I mean, I admire what Queens are trying to do. That's the club I started at. It's not a Gretna story. They're trying to do things in a different way that makes some longevity to it. One thing I'd say is, I think for young players to flourish in a team, you need to have a core of 4 or 5 really experienced professionals. They need to be decent players, but more importantly, they need to get it. They need to be top pros. They need to live their life right. You need to have this mentality that you need to have played for a number of years. And I think, and you don't learn that with doing the coaching stuff. That's kind of management. And I think they've missed the boat there with that, because if they don't turn it round reasonably quickly, I think they've only taken 4 points since the first 3 games out of 10 games. Yeah. So they're on a really, really poor run. And for them to get their ideas across or turn the club into what they want it to do, they need to stay in the league, So I do think they've missed a boat in terms of experienced professionals.
Well, that's us for today. My thanks to Ian McCall for his insight and Ali Reynolds too. And thank you for listening. Jonathan Sutherland and Tom English will be here tomorrow with the legendary commentator Jonathan Pearce. Remember, you can get us wherever you get your podcasts. So if you haven't done so already, just search for the Scottish Football Podcast and hit subscribe. I'll see you again next week.
Just a quick word to say the Scotland Rugby Podcast is now available every Tuesday. Join me, Andy Burke and Tom English for everything you need to know about the world of Scottish rugby. Just head to BBC Sounds and subscribe to the Scotland Rugby Podcast.